the mechanisms that are employed by vaccine manufacturers and the methods used to test or really to obscure safety signals make the products invalid from the get-go.
Yeah.
When I at the beginning of the pandemic, I did not really know what an adjuvant was. At the moment I discovered that we were using a trick to hyperactivate the immune system in order to make the vaccine work, my thought was, how could that possibly be safe?
Right.
And what does it have to do with all of the allergies that we scratch our heads over?
Right.
It doesn't make sense that
You're inciting the immune system, the body, toxins, into inflammation. I mean, in a world where inflammation is the bad guy, this product's designed to cause inflammation in order to work.
In a totally non-specific way. And what's more, let's take the aluminum that is currently the favorite adjuvant. If you're going to inject somebody with aluminum to hyperactivate their immune system in order to get it to respond to an antigen that you've put in a shot that it won't respond to under ordinary circumstances, there should be a long list of instructions that come with that. Here are the things that you should avoid eating for the next 2 weeks or a month. Here are the seasons in which we are not going to give you this shot because ragweed is blooming. I don't know what the instructions would be exactly, but there would be instructions about how to minimize the likelihood of triggering the immune system to react to something that is not a pathogen where you will suffer for the rest of your life for its reactivity. And I've never heard those instructions.
And this is what I love about what you do. And for me, you have given me new ways of getting an idea across, or even understanding something that I've been saying in a deeper way. But essentially what you're saying, so that people understand this, is that the vaccine is almost like it opens, like if there's a lock on the coding of your computer, it opens it up. So at this point, anything's allowed to come in and rewrite onto your software. You're creating this opening so that if you're breathing in ragweed right now, while your body's going through this several days of like, oh, I'm supposed to be told that's an enemy. Right now, I've just triggered the system, say, you're under attack, create antibodies to this. But if I'm eating cheese at that moment, if I'm eating eggs at that moment, if I'm breathing ragweed at that moment, my body's going, oh, my enemy, and starts creating all sorts of unnecessary immune responses to things that could be just environmental, not a part of the vaccine. Is that sort of?
Yes. So I actually learned some of this from Bobby. There is and the oldest vaccine technology involves using an attenuated pathogen, that is to say, a relative of the thing that actually threatens your health, and giving you an infection. Your body responds to infections. It's one of the things it does very well. So if it has an infection, it can learn the antigen that it is supposed to be targeting. Now, vaccine manufacturers do not like this technology. And there are reasons they don't like it. One, it's cumbersome, right? You have to actually cultivate these organisms, and because you're cultivating them, they can evolve. They can evolve once the patient has the infection. So it's a little bit scary, that technology. But what they've replaced it with is an inferior technology where they separate the antigens, where you're getting, something inert and dead. And the body does not respond to it like an infection, and therefore does not develop the immunity, right? They're weak, is what they are.
Yeah.
And as a trick to trigger the immune system to react as if it has an infection, they're basically giving you a chemical sickness, right? They're tricking your body into thinking it's sick, so that the body then is in surveillance mode trying to figure out which of the particles that are present are actually hostile, with no mechanism for telling it how to distinguish between ragweed and, some antigen of a virus.
Right.
So, of course, this would cause autoimmune disorders, allergies. It will cause dysregulation of that entire extremely elegant system.
Yeah.
So, I guess what I'm realizing, and, I'm still somewhere in this trajectory, is that much of what allows us to protect our own health are based on assumptions that simply are not met by the mechanisms that are being employed, right? You think that there is a system that tests vaccines carefully to make sure that nothing is injected into you for which the benefit does not exceed the cost. That is simply not true. These things are being created because they're profitable. They are being created in ways that are economically efficient at arbitrary cost to human health. The ways in which they can disrupt the body. Here's one. This is a significant change in my understanding. I used to think that inoculations were an elegant, minimal intervention that gave a large benefit, right? Because that's more or less how it's described in the textbook. You know, a very tiny gauge needle injects a small amount of a liquid, and suddenly your immune system is simply informed of something it didn't know. I now regard anything that is delivered into the tissue with a hypodermic needle as a radical intervention, right? You will often hear people who are defending, shots that have mercury in them by saying, well, yes, there's mercury in it, but, it's less than there is in a tuna fish sandwich. Well, that is a game of smoke and mirrors. Because, one, there shouldn't be any mercury in a tuna fish sandwich. That is the result of humans polluting the environment. Two, the amount of mercury in a tuna fish sandwich is not trivial, which is why pregnant women are advised to avoid them.
Yeah.
Three, there is a huge difference between ingesting something into your gut, where your gut is wired not to transport things into your interior, your actual interior.
Right.
So most of that mercury will pass through you if you eat it, whereas injecting it into you, this is not something you would normally be encountering. Your body doesn't have the mechanisms to deal with it, so its consequences are arbitrary. So in any case, when we inoculate, it seems like a minimal intervention. It is a radical intervention, and I still believe that vaccination, in the sense meant, the original sense, is potentially an extremely valuable intervention, but I absolutely do not trust the mechanisms that generate these products or that test them, either for how effective they are or how safe they are.
While we're on the subject, because you're so good at describing these things, you said something about the platform, the mRNA technology, to me when we were just in Switzerland, that I didn't fully understand. I've been really caught up with the spike. I've been saying the spike protein was the worst decision. Why would you make the bioweapon, like the weapon itself, what your body is recreating? Usually a vaccine wants me to focus on the weaker part of the virus, the wheels of the tank, if you will, so that I still take out the tank, but I'm not at risk for taking, having the bioweapon wreak havoc through my body. And so that's what I feel like was one of the catastrophic mistakes, which even Malone and you kind of touch on in that first interview. And so the myocarditis, pericarditis, the fact that there's spike protein being found there, we're all really sort of obsessed with that. But you said it really doesn't matter if it's spike protein. That's not actually the problem. It's the technology itself. Can you explain that?
Sure.
Please?
It's a problem. It's not the problem.
Right.
And I agree with you that the problem with spike protein is that because this is the molecule that binds to the ACE2 receptor, if you produce a bunch of it, we've got ACE2 receptors all over many tissues. So you don't want to produce something that's the exact, you don't want to distribute keys at random that are opening locks, right? That's not a biologically wise thing to do. So the spike protein was a bad choice. It is not the core problem with the mRNA platform. And the reason I think we are being led to understand that, even to the extent that the system that produces these things is beginning to acknowledge the hazards, it wants us to focus on spike protein, and it wants to rescue the platform as if the unfortunate thing.
And there's tons of it being made. Like they're like cancer. They're going after mRNA is the future technology.
So let me explain in simple terms why this technology in this form is dead on arrival.
Yeah.
The mRNA platform takes a message, a transcript of a gene, and it imports it. It imports it into the body in lipid nanoparticle. Lipid just means fat, and fats are absorbed by other fats. Your cells are all covered in fat. So we were initially told that the vaccines stayed in the site of injection.
Right.
Obviously, that wasn't going to be
Right
true,
here.
and it turned out
Yep.
not to be true.
Yeah.
Which means that they're going to circulate around the body in the blood and the lymph. Where will they get taken up? They will get taken up arbitrarily around the body, wherever the lipid nanoparticle bumps into a cell and the fats merge and this transcript is injected into the cytoplasm of the cell. When the cell takes that transcript and it translates it into protein, the ribosome picks up the mRNA and it reads it. Now, there's a lot of flaws there. The way we've stabilized these molecules makes the ribosome prone to produce garbage on the other end, which is dangerous. But even if it worked flawlessly.
If it does, if it's a perfect copy and really like just delivers exactly what the recipe said to make.
If it did exactly what the brochure said,
Yeah.
it would still be deadly dangerous. And the reason is that the immune system, one of the things I learned in that immunobiology course all those years ago, was that the immune system has an incredibly elegant mechanism for distinguishing self from non-self. Your immune system is composed of a huge number of cells. They can react in principle to any biological molecule that they encounter. But early in life, in utero, in fact, there is a sorting process where all of the cells, you have this huge array of cells that react to different things, all of the cells that are triggered in utero must be reacting to you because you're the only thing present, right? You're insulated from the world.
Mm-hmm.
So the immune system turns off all those lineages that are reactive in
Everything
utero.
I'm seeing right now is me. Don't attack it.
Those are on the white list, right? Everything else is foreign. So when you're born, the point is all of the cells that would react to you are already turned off, and anything that your immune system sees is now foreign, which doesn't make everything a pathogen, but it means those things are not self. So a self, non-self recognition system is the core of a properly functioning immune system. When you get sick with a virus gets into your body, it invades a cell, and it hijacks it. That cell now starts producing virus, and that cell will burst open, it will spill over to the next adjacent cell, and eventually some tissue will start leaking virus. You'll cough it onto somebody, they'll start producing virus themselves. So the immune system looks for a hallmark of viral infection in order to cure this. The hallmark is a cell that is making self-antigens and a cell that is making foreign antigens. Anytime the immune system sees a cell making both self and foreign, that is a virally infected cell. And the one and only right thing to do is to destroy it.
Kill it.
Yeah. So if that happens in your arm, in your liver, the surface of your lungs, it's not positive. It's a loss of tissue, but it's a manageable loss.
Right.
If that happens in your heart, it's a disaster, especially if it's a bunch of cells, because your heart, for reasons that actually go back to that telomere story that we talked about up top, your heart has almost no capacity to repair. What it does instead is it scars over, and scar tissue is not the equivalent of the tissue that was replaced.
Especially not something that's got to be flexible and moving.
Right. It can't fail for 80 years of continuous pumping. So these shots, by their very nature, if they work exactly as the manufacturer suggests, cause your own tissues to be attacked by your own immune system.
It makes your cells make self and foreign proteins at the same time.
Yep.
Therefore, relaying the immune system, attack and kill this. It's doing that. If it lands in your heart cells start doing that. We are attacking and killing. That part of the body does not regenerate cells, causes scarring.
Right.
Thus, we have this issue of myocarditis, pericarditis.
And this is very rarely, your immune system attacking your own heart cells is very rarely necessary. And the reason is the heart is not a good place for a virus to land and try to spread to anybody else. So it's not a target, it's well insulated. So in the case that your immune system detects a virus in your heart, that's a very serious situation. And destroying heart cells is not something that selection would program us to do haphazardly.
Right.
It's a dire choice to have to make. So My point is, I don't care what antigen you load into this thing. You're going to get the cells of the body taking it up arbitrarily. You're going to get cytotoxic T cells attacking the locations of translation of these proteins, and that is going to cause wounds, which in the case of the heart will then become scars. You have an absolutely acute pathology. If you get a bunch of heart tissue damaged simultaneously, like if, as John Campbell pointed out in one of his early videos, the failure to aspirate the needle means that you potentially might, hit a vein and get a whole glob of this stuff floating around the body. If that lands in your heart, gets absorbed, you get a bunch of heart tissue that's producing this foreign antigen, immune system comes in, kills that tissue. Now you've got a wound in your heart. And I must say I'm concerned when we say myocarditis. Myocarditis means inflammation of the heart tissue. It's not a pathology, it's a symptom. Okay? What is it a symptom of? Heart damage, destruction of heart tissue. That destruction of heart tissue is a critical problem. If you've got a significant number of cells that have been destroyed, you've got a wound in your heart. Let's say you're a soccer player. You don't know that there's some portion of your heart wall, the aorta has a weak spot in it now that wasn't there 2 weeks before. And, you're running for the goal and your blood pressure goes up beyond what it's done and boom, suddenly it blows a hole in the wall, right?
Yeah.
You don't know that that's there. But even after it heals over time, it becomes a scar, you're compromised for life.
Yes.
So there's no way that we should be risking triggering our own immune systems to attack our own tissues arbitrarily, which is what these shots will do, irrespective of what the antigen in them is.
Yeah.
So the attempt to blame the spike protein, of course, suggests, yes, we made a tragic error. The spike protein.
Focus on that.
Right. Focus
Next time
on
we won't do the spike, but we love this mRNA technology.
Right.
We're moving forward.
And of course, they love the mRNA technology because A, it's cheap to produce. I mean, basically, you can produce a new vaccine by typing a sequence into a computer.
Yeah.
Right. B, it allows them to take a bunch of shots that, are arduous to produce and streamline their production, so it's economically tremendously efficient. C, you can produce shots for a whole bunch of new things without having to come up with some new protocol for producing them because it's all the same. D, you can tell the FDA, well, this is the same shot you've already authorized, so we're just going to...
It's already been proven to be
It's already been proven.
Same technology.
Yeah, we'll just test the antigen this time, see if the antigen causes any special problems. So your control group and your treatment group are both going to have the pathologies of the mRNA platform. They're going to disappear because you get the same amount of pathology in both groups.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a dream come true for the ruthless bastards in pharma.
Right.
It's a nightmare from the point of view of patients.
Yes.
Absolute nightmare.
Amazing. So clearly stated. I'm really glad, my audience got to hear that. So sort of reflecting back then, this moment where we were sitting there and you did make good points about, am I assessing where this battle is at? And one of the things that I've said in similar meetings with Malones and people like that is, there was this question, we're losing this battle. I was like, you are looking at this through the Overton window that you're involved in, which is this big. There are some of us that have been at this long. We're actually in an accelerated position right now. You're just feeling the wave come down in the little space that you just jumped into. And then there's people that have been at this longer than I have. One of the things that, we sort of said there was a real push to change the labeling of the mRNA technology to not call it a vaccine. It's a huge part of, our movement was fairly divided over it.
Yep.
It's a gene therapy. And I said, do not do that. Do not change this. They called it a vaccine because this is the only way I'm going to draw attention from people that are now recognizing this is problematic, that you have similar problems, though the technologies may be a little bit different. But if I let you change the name and go, our bad, we mislabeled it, then you leave all of these vaccines that have never been through proper safety trials, that are really having issues that we need people to look at. I don't want to lose that focus. So they called it a vaccine. I'm sticking with it's a vaccine. So I've made decisions like that along the way because I'm involved in a battle that matters to me.
Yep.
I also want to say, because we're going to get into really the more important reason why you're here, which is really, we're going to talk about Rescue the Republic and why that's the case. But I just want to say that I grew up with parents that said question authority. They marched in the 60s. I wasn't vaccinated, but I ate, macrobiotic food. Like there was just everything. My parents said, do not trust the news. Do not trust what you're looking at. You've got to stick with your own instincts, and make sure that you always have the freedom of speech. So all of those things, it felt like to me, there are a lot of issues in our society, whether it's the Federal Reserve banking, fractional, all of that. I can look at many different things. People are into chemtrails. We're looking into some of that. But it seemed to me this vaccine issue, if I need my country to wake up to the fact that your government is actually not looking out for you and you're actually not in control of it. Somewhere back probably before I started looking, certainly before I started looking at this, we lost this for and by the people. The reason this vaccine issue really seemed important to me and why I sort of dropped everything I was doing to go into this was, as I looked at it, which you've now been on this journey, this has been done to everyone in this country. This isn't just, if I get into banking, there's people that banking they don't make enough money for it to ever matter. If I need everyone in this country to recognize that your government's lying to you, it's not looking out for you. I need something that's happened to all of us, that's been a lie we've all been a part of. And this is what I saw in the vaccine program. If I can convince and show it, not just convince, if I can show you through science that they have known they didn't properly test this, that they have skipped all of the things, that they are pushing a product, that they see injury. It is at their doors. They're being sued from it. They're not letting any press see it. They're using, propaganda to hide the fact that there seems to be a real problem here, that if enough people really saw that, this would be the tip of a spear to recognizing, oh my God, my government is not what I think it is. So just as we sit here now, back in that room, that's what I was a part of. And you were saying you're undermining what's happening here. I'd say most of the people in that room now see this the way that me and Bobby Kennedy and a few other scientists and doctors that have been really on this for some time. So as we sit here now, you came up to me, and I mean, I'm not, and honestly, this isn't in any sort of gloating. I haven't since we had this. You did come up about a year or so ago at an event, and you said, I wanted to tell you, I apologize. I don't remember there being something to apologize for, by the way, but I just said to you, Brett, I know you're going to look into this, and you're going to see that it's not what you think it is. And I'll never forget when you came up to me about a year ago. You said something that has really rocked me to the core. You said, I knew, look, you told me about the mouse study. I know that science is manipulated, especially where there's money to be made. I knew there was going to be problems. I know some people are being injured. That's obvious. Every product injures people. What I was shocked to find is that there is no science at all. That is an absolutely chilling statement. Just quickly, what do you mean by that?
Well, a couple things. One, I remember it as you do. And, I look back on my assumptions, and of course they were reasonable assumptions, but the system itself is not reasonable. I sometimes say certain stories diagnose the system. What you're talking about is if you actually have the courage to follow the evidence and figure out what is known and how is it known in this case, you cannot help but discover that it's a Potemkin village, right? This is nonsense. There are no people living in that village. That's a movie set. Mm-hmm. And the implications of that are dire, both from the point of view of what we are doing to people's health in the guise of trying to improve it, but also just personally. I mean, I didn't understand that I appear to have a vaccine injury, right? I have a profound allergy to wheat. There's no reason I should have an allergy to wheat. I'm an Ashkenazi Jew. My people have been eating wheat for thousands of years. What happened? Well, an adjuvant happened. Well, I happen to have wheat in my gut because, of course, everything contains wheat, right? My children have allergies to things that they shouldn't be allergic to, right? Let's put it this way. I never thought vaccines were safe. I thought they were safe enough. I thought the cost-benefit analysis was positive for them. When my children were born, Heather and I looked at each other and we said, what are we going to do about this? These things are not safe. And we said, okay, the rational thing to do is to postpone the injections in each case as long as possible. And the reasoning for that was very sound. The older you are when you get them, the more of your development is behind you already, the less disruptive they will be if something goes wrong. So we did that. So what that tells you, my children are now 18 and 20. It tells you 2 decades ago, we were already on alert that these things had potentially serious negative implications, and we were trying to minimize them. That level of caution wasn't nearly strong enough for me to protect my own children. I fell down on the job as a father because I didn't actually check all the assumptions then. Now, of course, you can't check every assumption in your life.
Right.
You'd be paralyzed.
Yeah.
So, I should have known that one needed special scrutiny, and I didn't do it. But what this also tells us is, when you hear Bobby talk about his road into this murky landscape,
Yeah.
he was dragged in. He didn't want to go looking here. He had plenty of corporate malfeasance to look into in the environment.
Right. Aren't I doing enough trying to get this mercury out of water,
Right.
drinking water, our fish, our food supply, our air? Like, kind of busy here.
Right. And it just sort of seems like, oh my goodness, right? Why take up a new topic where there's at least safety testing is being done in some regard, right?
Right.
And so he got dragged in because somehow somebody with an injured child, I think, caused him to feel that he had to just look a little bit. And once you look a little bit, you discover you have to look a little bit farther. And it just, the degree to which this is a fiction is shocking.
Yeah.
And then you face the thing from the other side of the looking glass, where everybody, as you start to talk about, the hazards of these things, you watch the openness of people to listen to you just shut down reflexively like a rat trap.
I mean, you just draw a giant scarlet letter right on your chest.
Right, exactly.
You decide to start talking about it.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you have a background in immunobiology. It doesn't matter that you can describe very reasonably why an adjuvant is suspect, on its face, or why the mRNA platform should be expected to cause heart wounds.
Yeah.
People are social creatures. People are interested in what's true, but only to a point. And this is one of the lessons that Heather and I address in our book. We are built to be able to figure out what's true, but it's a means to an end, right? It's a means to an evolutionary objective. Mm-hmm. It is not the objective. And therefore, when people detect the social consequences that will befall them if they conclude something awkward, they find reasons not to conclude that. And it has made this conversation impossible. But I think the road in is to recognize we are not talking about looking back at decisions you've made and worrying that they may have shortened your lives or injured your kids or something like that. That is, of course, part of it. But they're not done with you, right?
Right.
They are currently revising these injections to put them on the mRNA platform. If what I'm saying is true, then that is going to result in large numbers of people dying from heart pathologies that are going to be covered up because they can be.
Right.
So if they're not done with you, then it is a matter of, urgency that you look into this, not for social reasons, but for physiological reasons. You do not want to be damaged in this way.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to say no. And the fact that they are not only gearing up to have these injections and to strong arm you into taking them, but they are gearing up to shut down discussion of the hazards. They are gearing up to tie your compliance to your finances, right? They're setting up a dystopian landscape where you're going to have no choice but to accept something that puts you at risk of heart damage. You, your children, your grandchildren. So the instinct not to look at it is, let me give you some advice. Future you would like you to pay attention now because it only gets worse.
Right. Let me ask you this. How do they tell themselves? I have a theory that I'll put, but I get you believe in this technology. You're probably thinking we're sweeping some of the injuries under the rug on all the childhood vaccines. Yeah, maybe autism, maybe some of them are, triggered by vaccines. For those that are like on top, up above, like doctors not questioning it at all. Like they think these things are just perfectly as safe as water. They've been brainwashed to school, but everyone at the top making these things, putting them all, I have to assume there's some knowledge that we have a little bit of a problem here. But to have an arrogance or a disconnect to the level of we are going to take a brand new technology like mRNA and give it to, if we can get away with it, we're going to rush it on the market and give it to every single person in the world so that if this thing has some sort of fatal flaw, we will be responsible for wiping out the species. How do intelligent people like yourself that you could have taken a trajectory in your life that found yourself making this very exciting product, how the hell did they tell themselves that there wasn't how did they convince themselves they could do that without the greatest risk of all times?
Well, unfortunately, this gets very dark because, I think once you start to see how dangerous this stuff is, you really want this to be some inhuman level of actual error. But that story just does not fly.
Meaning nefarious, meaning purposeful, or
no. You want this to be an error because the idea that it is more than an error it's so ghastly that it just, the mind, you don't want to know that you are living amongst monsters.
Right.
But I don't know how else to interpret this because I can see, what actually happened at the beginning of COVID. I don't know, but I can tell you the following thing. There are new mRNA booster shots being recommended now for children.
Right.
There is no defense of that. You don't have to know very much to understand why that's insane. If you really made a mistake and you really thought COVID was a serious disease, it requires a vaccine to protect people from it, you would limit this to the people who actually are threatened by COVID, which is very few people. You certainly wouldn't be giving it to children because, among other things, not only is the cost-benefit analysis almost certainly negative, but the fact that we are now stuck with a new human pathogen means that children face a lifetime of multiple confrontations with this thing. We have no idea what the long-term implications are, not only from the point of compromising their health with the shots themselves, but people may need to reach some equilibrium with this new pathogen. We don't know that we are not preventing that from happening. And in fact, there's good reason to think that we are preventing it from happening by inoculating them, early
a leaky
in life.
vaccine that cannot allow their immune system cannot kill this thing.
Right. It's just absolutely intolerably stupid. What's more, and, it's rabbit hole after rabbit hole, but the result that is now replicated that says 2 or more mRNA shots for COVID and you trigger the production of IgG4, Now, that's going to be a lot of steps for most people.
Yeah.
But let me make it simple. IG means immunoglobulin. It means antibody. IgG is one of the regular classes of antibody. IgG4 is a very special subtype of IgG. IgG4's purpose, its biological purpose, the reason it evolved, is to turn down immune responses when they are causing harm. Right? When your allergist is trying to cure an allergy by injecting stuff into you, they're trying to trigger this attenuation signal to turn your immune response down.
Calm it down. Stop. Right.
So we are now giving people multiple shots when we know very well that multiple shots trigger the production of IgG4. Now, one, if you're in the business of trying to create immunity to COVID, and the mechanism you've chosen, if this was a surprise to you and you suddenly discover you're producing an attenuation signal, the answer is, oh, what don't we know? Okay, this did not work. It may be working in reverse.
You're sending a tank and saying, you know what, if we keep, we're literally tearing the armor off of the tank now, and so that it's not like you are doing the opposite of what your goal was.
Right. And so, Heather and I have a catchphrase, which is welcome to complex systems, right?
Right.
You make an intervention that seems like a reasonable thing, and some consequence you did not see coming has popped up. Welcome to complex systems. You should expect that to happen.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, it did happen. IgG4 shows up. That should have caused a total rethink of this if this was an honest effort to improve human health and immunity to COVID.
Right.
Didn't cause a hiccup at all.